Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Digital Fireside Chat. I'm Megan Grove, the customer engineer at MX Data. And we have Jada with us, who's one of our sales and marketing associates. And then also today we're hosting Joe Pino, my buddy Joe from Clutch, the vice president of strategy and solutions for Clutch. Thank you, Joe, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'm super excited to talk about our topic today, which is human-centered marketing. And I know, Joe, you are too, because this kind of goes hand in hand with the Clutch business model and everything that your platform puts together. So human-centered marketing, what that means is it's putting the customer at the center of the business, which attempts to solve their problems, anticipate their needs, and improve their overall experience in life. Obviously, this is something we try to stick to at MXD. So this is why this is very important. And when the ebook came out, Joe, that you guys sent out to us recently, I was like, oh my God, this is genius. This is genius for retailers to actually have all of this information packed into one, you know, document that they can actually reference and try to understand exactly how they can kind of structure their marketing strategies towards this human-centered marketing um, content. So, Joe, tell us, what is the Clutch human-centered maturity model, and what is that designed to do to help retailers today to be successful?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And you're absolutely right. We've been talking about this for years, right? The idea of all of the technology and all of the personalization that brands are really trying to get to. We thought this was a great chance for us to try to take some of the ideas we've been saying and put them into into an ebook. So, right, human-centered marketing is what we see as the future, where we're going, and ultimately the human-centered maturity model that we put together is really just a way of how do we get there. Brands are all already today in different parts of the model, whether it's content focused and they're dealing with a lot of legacy data. They're still working through getting digital alignment, but they're focused on just getting the message out. And then, of course, we see an evolution between from content to data focused to then of truly customer focused. And what does the human experience truly look like? And then ultimately, how do we automate that so we're making it easier for the marketer to operationalize getting to that endpoint. Again, with the human element always involved, doesn't necessarily mean human has to be hitting send on everything. And we'll talk about that a little bit more detail as we get into the latest buzzwords around AI and using that intelligence to help us get there.
Yeah. And I like how the Clutch model breaks out the three phases, right? So it's what you just said, the content focus, the data focus, and then the customer focus. The content focus, I feel like the world has. Like, we all know how to start up a social media platform and start posting things. But really, this is where a lot of the retailers get stuck, right? They all know how to do that and where to start, but then it's like, okay, well, then what? Because a lot of the times in the content focus phase, you're not getting the data and the analytics that you need to start sort of recognizing what your ROI could be if you take it to the next phase, which is being able to really analyze your data. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, talk about that. Jada, you probably have a lot of insight actually, because that's a lot of what you do.
Yes, I think the content focus, like you said, it starts with that. There are different platforms that you can use to analyze the data. So you can track, your engagement, KPIs, things like that. But knowing where to start and what those platforms are, I think a lot of retailers might struggle with that. And you have to get creative with the content and how you're pushing it out. Are you having the opt-in features? Are you pushing newsletters, subscription pricing models, things like that, to really drive the ROI and see return on the content that you are pushing out?
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? And content is always still going to be the main focus, right? At least as a starting point, you have to have something to say, and then of course, as you get smarter on who you're saying it to, how often you need to say the message. But the way we look at it too, with all that content you have, especially for customers that are already in your database, right? That, the big focus we talk a lot about is retention. So the
Mhm.
idea is you're building a relationship with that customer, so you shouldn't keep talking to them like you just met them, right? It's like a friend that over time you know what they like or don't like. So how do you use the content you have to be more targeted in the message, and then start to again use that intelligence with every interaction to inform your next interaction. Again, I don't think we're necessarily saying anything that's really revolutionary when we speak to this, because I think everyone will agree. Yep, content and then measurement. But what we tend to hear a lot of is, what are we measuring? What's the KPI? how do we do it faster, right? Rather than having to take all the data out of the system, have a BA go do the analysis on it or analysis on it, and then have to put it back in the system and then say, now run this campaign just to do it again. Again, that turnaround time with even some of our very tech-centric brands that we work with, it's a process. And it takes too long. I mean, right now, customers and consumers are just 24 hours. They need and want a faster turnaround time. And purchases are won or lost in between purchases, right?
Yeah.
So what's the next best outcome? So it's interesting, and even our the most evolved brands are still struggling with that turnaround time. But
yeah,
it is an interesting challenge that we're continuing to see evolve over time.
And what we are seeing is more retailers are trying to move into the data focus phase by learning about the automated technology and the platforms that are out there that can all be integrated together to start giving them the actual data that they can use to utilize, right? So it's transactional data, it's behavioral data. It's basically gives them all kinds of information to develop new marketing strategies and campaigns. So actually, I think it's about like 70% of companies globally are somewhere in the data focus phase. They focus on acquiring and using consumer information and adopting technology for their purposes. But again, then they get stuck. So then it's like, okay, well, what do they do with the data? So talk to us about to that, because the Clutch platform, I mean, it is a perfect example of how it kind of channels everything between different, platforms to give retailers the ROI and the analytics.
Well, what is interesting is there's no shortage of technology, right? And I think there's different darlings that pop up from time to time, and we definitely see brands that are picking and choosing different winners, and then ultimately kind of building their own 10-headed monster, if you will, from different email to SMS to offer management to a CDP, and they're kind of building their best in breed. And then also what they inadvertently become is technologists. You now have your own in-house tech team trying to continue to maintain and connect these systems on an ongoing basis. So now suddenly you have a retailer or a restaurant owner now trying to figure out how to manage an entire tech team who's now managed to develop their own system. Our approach, and which is interesting, at least we of course think so, is we could plug into those systems. We may not be big believers in them, but we can plug into them, right? We do believe in that more closed loop end-to-end solution, because as brands evolve to create this human-centered marketing experience, it's all about creating a seamless experience for the consumer. And sometimes what gets lost in that is operationalizing it. How do I bring that to fruition? Isn't just about connected technology, but making it easier for the user of all this technology to operationalize it better. And that is a really key element, because as we all know, marketers don't stay around long. So they may be around 2 to 3 years. So they may never even see the end of a project. So you end up spending more time in a project phase than you do in a sort of a run phase of let's go now run and operationalize it. So again, it's definitely a challenge that we like to address, and we do speak a lot about that consolidation discussion.
Yeah. So, and then with that, once the retailer, has the data that they need, they can analyze it. Then it's figuring out, now what do you do with it? Usually then we go into the customer focus, right? So what does that mean? It's putting together your customer journeys. It's understanding your customers' buying behavior across what platforms you offer, your products to be sold, and being able to really customize individual personalizations and experiences that go hand in hand with your customers.
Yeah, I mean, that really is, again, the everything coming together. We're at a point where now you truly are customer focused. You're relying more on the technology to introduce more automation. You'll never stop testing and learning and understanding what works or doesn't. But the nice thing, and this is where ML and AI is coming into place, is that the learning is happening faster, and it's happening in a way and across so much data that one individual or even a team of individuals couldn't necessarily capture anyway. So when we start to get into the dream, the right message, the right time, the right offer, all with the idea that the consumer, every time a consumer opens up or engages with your brand, it's the right engagement for that consumer. That is all based on all the information that we're learning and gathering on a regular basis, but then the customer is realizing it, right? So as simple as an email may be, but them seeing that message is very targeted. And there's a reason they're seeing it even at that time. So again, you start getting down to that idea that you're automating more, you're testing and learning more things And as a marketer, you're spending more time thinking about what your strategy is, opposed to just having to worry about executing the very next offer or the very next promotion. So again, you spend more time kind of as a strategist or a marketing strategist, the big thing of how you continue to evolve. So again, now what you're doing in this phase is leveraging everything we've been talking about, from segmentation to personalized to a single system that's communicating at any given moment, understanding the ROI, right? Which is key to all of this, because even if we get to this full automation and that customer centric point of view, you still want to know, how is this driving my consumer behavior? Can I put a number to it to understand my top line is increasing and the number of customers that I'm working with aren't churning? So it's it's an evolution that everyone should be aiming for, but it's not easy to get to, and it's going to be, again, it really require cross functional alignment, and again, key decisions that build on top of each other rather than erase the previous decision, right? Like, as again, what we see a lot in this, you come in, you kind of almost have to redo decisions that were made by previous teams.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like how you guys literally call it the maturity model, because that's exactly what it is. You can't just throw everything together all at once and expect to get results. It is a building process. It's, starting with the basics, being able to understand and become a master of those basics, and then how you build from there. And with the ultimate goal, then, of course, increasing your sales and increasing your customer experience, the retention that we're talking about, a customer for life, basically. So,
Exactly.
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say exactly right. Again, that's the goal, and it seems so easy. Obviously, we just discussed this in 15 minutes, but it really is something that we know brands continue to struggle with. So again, as we talk to, and even some of our shared clients, right, we realize that there's opportunities that we'd love to get in front of and kind of talk about operational alignment, cross department alignment, and then continue to focus on how they bring all this technology together to get to that end view.
So let's talk about what our recommendations would be for retailers who want to get started. What would you recommend? Where do people start, and how do they grow?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say first and foremost, it comes with that internal strategic alignment, right? You need to have the hearts and minds of the organization truly wanting to get on this page of being human centered.
Well, let me
So I
ask you
think,
this. What do
okay,
you think, though, about like hospitality and retailers having technologists? Like, because let me give you my 2 cents real quick.
sure.
It is so nice to work with retailers who have the in-house IT, department, or like their own infrastructure already in place, and then you are working with people who are a little more technical, because it does make things, I think, go faster. It's more efficient. They kind of already know the language, so they're the ones that are actually taking care of the groundwork for the business. Because for me, sometimes when we're just dealing with retailers who don't have their own internal IT, it can be frustrating because retailers don't know what to do or where to start. And that's where I think they need to either lean on their internal technologists, or, of course, like an MX Data, for example. I mean, that's what we do basically, but also like Clutch, just come straight to Clutch, learn how to get started and how to put all these pieces together. So I cut you off,
Yeah,
but tell me what you think about that.
no, I think that's a fair point, right? Having technologists internally to be able to manage projects is important, right? Having someone that can speak the language and understand, again, all the different systems that they do have to manage,
Yeah.
is definitely important. And there's different elements to that. Somebody that can help architect and bring together the right solution, to be able to operate retail, right? As a retailer, if I'm running e-commerce, OMS, ERPs, all make sense. I think where we tend to see is the next level above that, where now you have that technologist internally, that is now developing this proprietary technology. And I
Yeah.
think that's where we've seen, at least historically, where brands start to cross the line from being, hey, I need to manage our technology stack, to now I'm developing our own solution that
Yeah.
other
That gets
organizations like
dicey.
and other organizations like yourself. I mean, we've gone through rounds of raising funds and investing over 15 years with that sole focus of building, again, in this case, a marketing CRM solution. And so it's always interesting when brands say, we'll just build it in a year. And again, it goes to, well, now you're just taking your entire developing team and focusing on totally net new feature and product that they weren't in the market to do when they first probably set out to
Yeah.
hire. So that's where we tend to see a little bit of a challenge, and realizing you may build it today, but we're constantly thinking about how do you evolve to what's coming next and how do you continue to make
Exactly.
this as open as possible.
Because the reality is, there are multiple systems to handle multiple operational efficiencies within the organization. There is no one given perfect solution for retailers. And it is important for them to learn how to take advantage of the different opportunities that are out there to help them grow. And so, for someone internally, a technologist, to think that they can manage all these separate systems without any sort of help or organization is kind of, oof, it could get scary.
Yeah, and then as a company to depend on one or two people to keep all that internal knowledge can also be again a concern too, right? As again we manage turnover. So
Yeah.
how do you avoid putting so much into one or two resources as you look to, for the most part, deliver a strategy that is as frictionless as possible, right? Again, in some cases, we have a lot of different brands, whether it's in retail, hospitality, convenience, or grocery. They're all trying to get to that same outcome of not just human centered, but from a technology standpoint, is how do you make it as seamless as possible, right? People aren't necessarily going to win because their e-commerce site is better than someone else's. It's all goes back to how do I just make the checkout as frictionless as possible? I come to your site, I want to buy what I want to get, and make it seem as seamless as possible. So that that can be true across a number of different retailers and marketers to just kind of they're not there for the e-commerce experience. They're there for your products and just want it to make life easier. So anyway, I think there's a lot of great technology now that is off the shelf that could provide that. So again, deciding to build your own, I think again you're just going to quickly start falling behind and just immediately start creating tech debt. So if you're at a position where you could start fresh and you don't have tech debt, that's ideal state, right? And that's why in some cases you see new brands be able to quickly outperform some of their predecessors. But then of course you have other brands who don't have that luxury, right? And they have to start to come out of their tech debt and need to figure out where do they start. And so again, that's where of course I know as you laugh, you've seen a
I'm
lot more than
laughing
I
at you
have.
because you're dropping all these buzzwords today that I like.
Oh,
Tech debt. I like that. That's good. Yeah, that's why I'm laughing at you. But you're making a very
okay.
good point. I just couldn't help but I haven't heard that one before. That's good.
Okay. Yeah, definitely something we see a lot of, right? So the idea that you're kind of on old systems that you know that you don't want to be on for a while. So again, we deal with it a lot. Brands will come to us that are looking for different solutions, and it's not necessarily always net new, right? They want to run a loyalty program, and some of our best clients are clients that have already been running loyalty for years, and they're just now realizing that, hey, we want to start to evolve loyalty, and what we've done has been great, but we are on an older system that is limited. We want to move to something else. So sometimes that transition is where we obviously unlock some of the best ideas. And yeah, and tech debt is something we definitely have dealt with a lot, where we're waiting for legacy systems to be sunset.
Yeah. And I want retailers to know too, like this is why we have these digital fireside chats. It's us. We have a partnership. Like you and I are working on a ton of stuff together. We've got a lot of mutual customers. We've got mutual ideas. We've got mutual, successful things that we're all trying to put in place for all of our customers to help them get to this place. So I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us about all this and explain this human-centered marketing strategy. It's really good, and I really thank you for that.
I appreciate it and look forward to continuing to work with you, and certainly, yeah, working with our mutual clients.
So what do you guys have coming up? Like what's going on for Clutch in the upcoming months? What can we expect?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, there's a number of different things always happening as we continue to work with in different tech ecosystems, right? I know we work very closely in the Shopify space and even retail pro. So continue to see the evolution of that ecosystem. We're also very heavily focused on even continue to evolve. What does AI mean to marketing, right? And how does AI get injected into our solution to make it easier as brands continue again to use AI in a compliant and sort of targeted way that continues to drive towards that human-centered marketing.
Yeah, and so the two of us together, we have a couple exciting things. So I think we're going to have you for a webinar here soon in the next couple weeks. Show us the Clutch platform, new updates and enhancements, things like that. But we're also working on a Prism plugin, Clutch Prism plugin. So we've got that going, and we'll hopefully have a lot to talk about in the next couple months with that.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Jada, for hosting. And thank you to everybody for watching as always. Talk soon.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Bye.